Thank you, Mr. President, for your speech, for your valuable speech, and I would like to give the podium to Mr. Abdullah Ghur, the Prime Minister of the Turkish Republic. In the name of Allah, kind and most merciful, Mr. Chairman, in the beginning, I would like to give our respect to you for this great initiative at the right time for the second Islamic Summit. This organization have a great and important role that it can take to help solve this problem that faces the Iraqi people. And it have the right to do this role and to complete the role of the United Nations. This stage is very important, and we would like to concentrate on two fronts. One, the inspection of the United Nations in Iraq and complying with the United Nations Security Council. The second front, we are seeing army and forces in our area. Let's be frank, let's be clear. We are seeing war in the horizon, and we see a destruction coming to our Islamic area. Turkey is one of the neighbors of Iraq, and we have common roots and relations, culture, civilization, historical ties with the Iraqi people. All the people of the area are going to be influenced directly and indirectly as what happened in the first Gulf War and during the last 10-12 years. All our economies lost, our security compromised. Mr. Chairman, Iraq have faced economical sanctions, and Turkey have extended and intensified its efforts in the last 2 months by visiting Syria, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi, Iran. And we started our Turkish initiative in Istanbul on the 23rd of January. With all these 5 nations. And this is an evidence that we are trying to do our role and convinced that we are convinced to bring stability to the area. The support that these countries gave to Iraq is a serious try, an attempt to avoid war. We asked Iraq to oblige completely with all the resolutions of the United Nations and to work in order to support, and we worked in order to support the sovereignty of the Iraqi land. But unfortunately, the Iraqi government did not take advantage of this opportunity. And I talked personally to the president of Iraq and his deputies, and I sent messages to President Saddam Hussein and his deputy Taha Yassin Ramadan. I invited him to visit Ankara. And the deputy prime minister of Turkey visited and met with Tariq Aziz. And in all these occasions, we asked Iraq to concentrate and obliged and take advantage of this very precious time that is left and cooperate with the United Nations. I also talked with Kofi Annan and attended also the European Summit who recognized the importance of the Turkish initiative. We are trying to knock on every available door to solve the problem peacefully. Why we find ourselves here in this depressing situation? The answer came at Dr. Blix's report on the 14th of February in the Security Council when he said if Iraq have obliged and cooperating in 1991-92, the disarmament period could have been a lot shorter, and actually all the sanctions are ended by now. All the decisions and resolutions that Iraq did not oblige until 1441, Resolution 1441, and the other resolutions, the last few weeks, we found that the Iraqi government cooperated on a better level with the United Nations, such as destroying Al-Samud's 2 missiles is a good response from the Iraqi government to the Blix reports. But that's not enough. The Iraqi leadership should show more cooperation and true change in their path. According to what Dr. Blix said, the true cooperation include that Iraq should oblige and take advantage of the time left by obliging with all the resolutions that was issued by the Security Council and prove that there is nothing left of the weapons of mass destruction or destroy them. Blix, in his report, mentioned that the results that will come out of this armament is very limited. And I would like to finalize my speech by speaking about a very dear and important issue, and that is the Palestinian issue, the issue that should be solved. The misery of the Palestinian people should be examined and discussed in full force all the time. And we need to find a solution to these problems in the near future to achieve security and peace in the area, which will never be achieved except through carrying out and obliging with the United Nation resolutions regarding the Middle East. And the nations of the area should submit a clear map for the future, and Turkey will help in this strategy. I would like to extend our condolences to the Palestinian people and the families of the victims of the Israeli forces. And thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Abdullah Gul, for his inclusive speech. And now I would like to invite Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Jabir Al-Sabah, the First Deputy of the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister of the country of Kuwait. Please come to the podium. In the name of God, kind and most merciful, Allah said, people, you have received the truth from Allah. If you oblige, that's for yourself. If you lose your path, it's up to yourself, and no one who is responsible about your soul. Brother Hamad Al-Khalifa Thani, the head of Qatar and the head of the Islamic Summit, the presidents, the princes, your highnesses, and the heads, the Secretary General of the Summit, peace be upon you. I am honored to extend the greetings of Sheikh Sabah Ahmed Sabah, the emir of the country of Kuwait, whom I have the honor to represent in this exceptional summit of the Islamic Summit. This is the third summit that we all or some of us have attended in the last few months, whether in Kuala Lumpur, where we met through the Non-Alliance Movement Summit, and in the Arab League, and now in Qatar, in this beautiful city of Doha. The essence of this summit is to exert all effort to avoid the military confrontation in Iraq. This meeting have a spiritual dimension, since it's an Islamic meeting. Therefore, we should be truthful with our conscience when we discuss the sides of this problem. Your Highnesses, we don't need to mention that, but we are all members of the United Nations. We are obliged with all the resolutions and decisions of the United Nations. All the decisions that was issued and resolutions by the United Nations, 160 in 1990, after the invasion and the occupation of Iraq to my country Kuwait, all the way till resolution 1441, the current one, is all a complete bundle of resolutions, enough to solve all the problems if it would have been enacted upon from the beginning by Iraq, which could have avoided the whole area, a lot of dangers, and also the current possible war. This explosive situation in the area, and my country Kuwait is the closest, could not be treated independently without considering the reasons that led us to this. The current situation is not an independent issue, but it is a result, logic results of all what happened before, especially the war that was in 1980 and in 1990. And without the connection between all this, we cannot resolve the Iraqi issue truthfully. Truth alone and the enactment of all these resolutions and the new initiatives, not maneuvers. These are the ways to come out of this problem. This is the duty of the Iraqi leadership toward the international community. The populations are the ones that take the wrath of their leaders' decisions. Now, we would like to look into the future of the Iraqi people. The leadership of Iraq should learn from the previous disasters to avoid and to save the Iraqi people from the coming war, and to oblige by all the requirements imposed upon them by the world community and get rid of all these types of weapons to avoid the wrath of the world. When we talked about the resolutions of the United Nations that Iraq should obey, we're asking Iraq to truthfully and honestly cooperate with the Red Cross and to solve the problem of our POWs and to release them, or to tell us what happened to them, and to return the properties of Kuwait, especially the National Archive, according to the United Nations resolutions. Kuwait, despite all the wounds and the losses and the suffering of our POWs, still insist on the safety of the Iraqi brother people. Therefore, our country understands completely the issues that could have saved all our area from these disasters. Iraq is big and rich through the people and great history. and should have the right to build the future of Iraq that deserve the next population, the future population. Mr. President, my colleagues, the great ideas and initiatives are the only way to get out of these conditions. The country of Kuwait greets Zayed bin Sultan, the Sheikh of the United Arab Emirates, who have great wisdom in his initiative to treat the problem of Iraq based on his great wise positions to save the unity and the sovereignty of Iraq, and asking the leadership on Iraq to abandon their own self-interest. And Kuwait supports this initiative to keep the sovereignty of Iraq and to save the Iraqi people the destruction, and to avoid the whole area this ugly war that will destroy stability. We invite the Iraqi leadership to think deeply about this and take this sacrifice that is the only way to get out of this. Based on that, Kuwait will participate in any decision that lead to avoid this war. We are a good partner, and we will oblige by all the decisions in Sharm el-Sheikh to help change the attitudes and the directions in the area. But unfortunately, political maneuvers are the only thing that we are faced with right now from Iraq. We have not yet seen true initiative from the Iraqi side. I hope I'm not pessimistic when I say that the only change in the situation is more loss of precious time to get out of this problem. Your Highnesses, kings, princes, and presidents, I would like to mention about the bad situation in the occupied land of Palestine and the Palestinian people's dilemma and the price they pay, their blood and their life, to defend their existence and their sovereignty and defending our holy land in Palestine. The outcome of the Palestinian situation is dependent on the cease of the attacks of Israel and building the colonies in Israel and changing the Islamic identity of Al-Quds. This exerts all of us to move and to take all responsible action through peaceful means by introducing international observers into the occupied land. And it is out of the question that to bring the Palestinian dream of sovereign country with Al-Quds as its capital is also will come by solving the problem of the refugees in the surrounding countries. At the end, I would like to ask God to grant us success and guide us into the right path and give us steadfastness in our steps according to His words, give us kindness and give us wisdom. Allah is the truthful one. Peace be upon you. I would like to thank my dear brother Sabah for his expressive words. Now I would like to give the podium to Mr. Izzat Ibrahim, the Deputy of the Revolutionary Council of the country of Iraq. In the name of God, kind and most merciful. I would like to recite 3 verses from the Quran, one for the governors of Kuwait and 2 for the attendees in this conference. For the conference, may Allah protect me from the devil. Unite as one, do not be divided. And the second verse, do not be depressed, do not be sad, for you always be above if you are faithful. As for the verse that speak to those little rulers of Kuwait, it says, you will never find people who believes in Allah and the last days, who will appease those who will challenge Allah and His Prophet, even if they are their families or brothers or tribes. Allah is always truthful. Prince Hamad Bin-Khalifah Al-Thani, the Prince of Qatar, Your Highnesses, your Prince, Kings, Prince, Presidents of all the Islamic countries, peace be upon you and mercy. I would like to express in the beginning about our gratefulness to His Highness Sheikh Prince of Qatar, who invited this summit in this particular conditions in our Islamic history and the history of the world. We are hopeful and confident that this summit will produce resolutions that respond to the aspiration and hopes of our Muslim nations, and to support the unity of Muslims facing these dangers and challenges that threat the security of the Islamic nations and the sovereignty of its countries. It is clear now by the statements and the positions that appears that land and resources are not the only targets against our nations, but Muslim human being is the target. His personality, his religion, his entity, his history, his current time, and his future is the target. Mr. President, these dangers and challenges that threat our Islamic nation reach to the level that is threatening the core belief of our faith and the sovereignty of our nations and the national rights of these countries, and the sovereignty and the control over its resources and life choices. The Islamic world is nations and countries is the first victim of the deteriorating international situation because the presence of only one superpower is which is the United States of America, and the efforts of the United States to divide the Islamic nations, to control it and face it with threats and war and force and attacks, and violates all the world's laws and the United Nations Constitution, and violating all faith and peaceful religions. The rulers of America are waging their attack and enjoying drinking our blood when the victims are Arabs and Muslims. And this explains that they are treating the Islamic nation with all kind of viciousness and hateful, unlike any other conditions in the world. They are applying they are applying their principles based on biblical principles, old biblical principles. They are trying to label Islam and Muslims are terrorists. They are even attacking the personality of our Prophet Muhammad by some of the American officials. That proves what we just told you, that this sick situation needs our unity and cooperation, and reject these attacks and live on the level of our people's expectation. We need to have common Islamic words, unite our words based on God's words and His Prophet, who said Muslims, bloods and funds are one. And they are one hand upon their enemies. We need to face these external threats with willness and steadfastness, and do not allow the Zionists and the colonialism to divide us and make us each other's enemies. Our land, our resources, our religion, they want to control all of that. As Allah said in His book, they will continue to fight you until they turn you away from your religion and your faith, if they can. Allah also said in the Quran, Jews and Christians will not accept you until you change your faith and follow them. Mr. President, the Constitution of the Islamic Summit and its resolutions, such as the declaration in Dakar and Tehran, in the 6th and the 8th summit, and the foreign ministers, Muslim foreign ministers, all of it enforced the cooperation and the unity of the Muslim countries to improve its defenses and sovereignty, and to face the attempts of the foreign powers to control it. The safety and the security of each Islamic country is the issue concerning the rest of the Islamic countries. And also to oblige by the UN Constitution and resolutions in solving the international conflicts peacefully and not through force or the threat of using force in international relation, and do not interfere in the affairs of other countries. These are the main principles that adopted by the Islamic nations. Mr. President, dear brothers, the people of Iraq are facing since the last 12 years a vicious American campaign to occupy the land and subject Iraq to American and Zionist control, and to steal all the resources, and to change the political map in the Middle East, and to control the oil resources, and expand their presence along with the Zionist conspiracy to extend their country from the Euphrates to the Nile. And the crimes that is committed by the Zionist entity against the Palestinians, by the complete support of the United States. The United States used in their vicious campaign against Iraq all the means of attacks, such as economical sanctions and mass casualties, and using the uranium ammunition and threat the safety and the stability of the Iraqi people, and support and train the mercenaries to carry out sabotage and criminal acts inside Iraq to destabilize it. But the people of Iraq, the courageous people of Iraq, under the leadership of our leader, the believer, the faithful, the hero, Saddam Hussein, who is steadfastly keeping his faith against this Zionist American campaign, huge campaign. In all its level, militarily, politically, economically, and psychologically. And we see the rulers of America today with the Zionists, the criminals, and the little agents of Kuwait are combining their forces to wage huge attack against Iraq after they lost all their pretenses that they used by using the lies about the presence of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, the threat of America against Iraq, and the current forces is a clear violation of the United Nations resolutions and constitution, which forbid the threat of use force or using force against any country. The world community, whether leaders or people, they stand against the attack against Iraq, which proved to be a very dangerous initiative in the world community. This will bring our world back to the days of uncivilization. Mr. President, dear brothers, the people of Iraq, the people of the great Iraq, and the heroes of the Iraqi forces and the leadership will defend their land, their great land, following God's words. Fight in the path of Allah, those who will fight you, but do not attack, for God do not like the attackers. We will defeat those attackers, those Americans, by the help of God. Today, Iraq is a strong citadel, a fortified citadel of faith and power. The children of Iraq are becoming a great army of 7 million, trained on a high level, spread in the valleys, in the mountains, in the in the villages and towns. Their hearts is full of faith of God and the country and the nation. They are full of fighting spirit to defend their honor and their dear values, and victory will come from Allah. They are receiving all this power from the words of Allah, who said that He is with us and that He will frighten the attackers and let them flee. The whole world now sees that the rulers of America and the Zionists are working to impose their hegemony on the world, starting by our Muslim nations and the Middle East, and they choose Iraq and Palestine because they are the thorn in the sides of America and the Zionists from the beginning of days. They want to make sure that the Iraqis and the Palestinians submit their children and their land on the altar of those Zionists. But in the name of Allah and by His will, we are prepared to face the United States based on our Islamic faith and based on our civilization, and by the support of all the honorable people in the world, such as yourself, and by our faith in Allah, who will bring victory to the faithful and defeat to the unfaithful. And we will defeat those invaders. Baghdad and Iraq, all will be defiant against those invaders. The land of Iraq will become grave for them. Dear brothers, looking forward for your actual support from the Islamic nations against America and the Zionists, and your support and cooperation, and to stop providing any support or facilitations to our common enemy, the imperialist, the Zionist enemy. The rejection of invasion against Iraq is a true right of our faith, Islam. For Allah said, O believers, fight the infidels and let them always faced by you. Also, kill in the path of Allah against those who attacks you. Allah gave us the hope, for He says, tell those who are fighting that Allah is capable of bringing victory to them. The rejection of attacks and invasion is also according to the international norms and laws. Therefore, the attack against Iraq is part of colonialism, Zionism, and plan to attack Iraq and Palestine. Dear brothers, we need to declare that the American threats and the fortifications and the presence of American forces is illegal and is against all Muslim nations and the world community. Allah said, kill the infidels all the way, as they kill you all the way. We need to receive guarantees of our rights to keep our sovereignty. Each one of us, each country of us, according to Article 51 of the United Nations Constitution, our Islamic nation, leadership and people will rise up to face this challenge. Dear brothers, in the Arabic Nations Summit, and in this summit, and based on the advice and the request of 10 Arabic presidents, they asked us not to respond to this guy that you saw a few minutes ago, the representative of the Kuwaiti country. And we obliged. And we did not respond when they attacked the great giant, the symbol of our nation, Saddam Hussein. And today, they did the same mistake, grave mistake, against Iraq. I tell you very briefly, Iraq went to Kuwait in 1990, 1991, and what happened. And we can record what happened, monetarily, economically, on Kuwait. Each year after that, each year, Iraq lost because of the betrayal of Kuwait and the betrayals of the rulers of Kuwait and their conspiracy with Zionism and imperialism. Iraq lost 10 times what Kuwait lost. And today, look at them, their arrogance. They are violating the decisions of the summit in Beirut, in Zahran, and the non-alliance countries, and all the Islamic summits. And they are threatening the security of Iraq in the heart, and call the American forces to come to their land. Shut up, You little agent, you monkey. May Allah curse you and curse your mustache. You want to stand against Iraq, you dirty? The president of the Kuwaiti group, please. Brother Izzat, please. Brother Izzat, I have a remark here. I have a remark here. I have a remark here. Listen to me. In the beginning, you promised that we will be united, and you mentioned the Quran verse about unity. We are here today to discuss only one issue and one issue only, and that's the Iraqi issue. Please do not turn this conference into a circus. And do not cause the scandal.